So my Hollywood crush from when I was a kid was Kelly from Saved by the Bell, if anyone wants to know, okay, from the Max. So, and someone's really excited about that right there. So, anyways, hey, today I'm super pumped that you're here. Love Sundays. It's a chance for us to come into an environment and just discover Jesus. And that's what we want to do on a daily basis, and this is our chance to do it together. And before we jump into today's talk, I want to challenge you to follow along however you feel comfortable, whether it's with the notes on the Connect card, whether it's with your own notepad, or you can even follow on our app. So every week I post under the tab Notes my message notes that you can follow along with. So if you think it's terrible, you can save it and then just tear it to pieces throughout the week, or you can just follow along on your phone. Here's the cool thing about the app that I want to share with you. So far, we've had over 700 app sessions on our app, which gets me really excited because if you're not using it, someone's using it. So I'm really pumped for whoever that is. And so we only launched the app a few months ago. We've already had 700 different sessions being on. A session just means someone's been on the app. Doesn't mean they're jumping from page to page. If someone gets on and jumps page to page, that still counts as one. So I encourage you to jump on the app this week. So if you didn't know, we also post a daily devotional that you can utilize. It'll take you less than 15 minutes. It's called the 31-day challenge. We focus on one psalm per week with a theme. So for the example, this past week was the theme on trust. Will you trust God? And there's a verse of the week, there's a psalm of the week, Psalm 20, and then there's always a scripture that we change daily that you can read, and then there's some ideas for you to reflect on them. So however you want to reflect, whether it's writing in a journal, whether it's going for a walk, whether it's sitting in silence, or whether it's drawing a picture, whether it's praying out loud, however you reflect with God, that's what that means. So it's just another resource that you can utilize that we want to provide for you. That'll be there daily. I try to get them up there in the morning. Sometimes I don't, so don't judge me. But on that note, let's jump into today's series, week 2 of When Pigs Fly. Has anyone here ever seen a pig fly before? Perfect. One person. Awesome. So here's what this series is about. Wonder and joy. To begin to appreciate the fantastic, the crazy, and the outlandish miracles of God for our lives and for other people's lives that Jesus can do in you, in me, and in others. That we would have no more cynicism, which is just another fancy word for being cynical, right? We want to have a heart that is optimistic, a heart that we would call a heart of faith, which is what we're going to talk about today. But here's my hope for the series, whether it's week 1, 2, 3, or 4. It's simply this. Don't quit before the miracle. Don't quit before the miracle. So whatever you're battling, whatever our goal is as a church, Project 15, if there's going to be a discouraging time, I guarantee it, in whatever you're trying to battle through for that miracle, and you're going to want to quit. Don't quit before the miracle. If you mess up, that's okay. You have a new day, new opportunity, okay? So that's the hope for this series in a nutshell. Last week we talked about the miracle of deliverance, basically God's power over darkness. And because of the cross, we now hold that power as well. So we too have power over darkness. And you can go back and watch last week's series or check out the notes from last week on the app. Next week and the week after, we'll be talking about the miracle of protection, the miracle of provision. And then today, we're going to focus on the miracle of healing, a God who is about healing. And so let's talk about some healing miracles that took place in the Old Testament. There are tons of them. I'm just going to talk real quickly about 3. Hannah had a miraculous birth. Elijah raises a boy from the dead. Yep. God heals Neb, his insanity. This guy was insane. Heals him. Done. Now, focus on the Gospels. There are 30 different healing miracles that take place in the 4 Gospels in different angles of the story. There were hundreds of more miracles that took place that were implied by Jesus or by the disciples. We all know, we've heard the stories before, or maybe you haven't, that Jesus healed the blind, opened deaf ears, healed lepers, and raised the dead. In the book of Acts, here's a really cool story of healing. So there was a preacher named Paul, and who here has ever fallen asleep during the sermon? Come on, let's be honest. Yep, I have, and I'm the one speaking. I fall asleep sometimes, don't even realize it, right? Who here has fallen asleep during my sermon? I was going to say get out if someone raised their hand. Eric, get out. No. Anyways, so check this out. There was a kid, I'm probably going to butcher his name. I always practice these names, and then I get up here and I panic, and I'm like, but here's this kid named Eutychus. He fell asleep. He was sitting on a windowsill during the message in the book of Acts. He falls asleep, and guess what happens? Falls backwards out of a 2-story building and dies. So what's Paul do? Okay, goes down below and raises this boy back from life to life. That's a miracle, right? So he puts a kid to sleep during his message because it was that good, and then he ends up raising this kid back to life. That's a miracle. So there are tons of people out there that witnessed it. Pretty cool. John 14:12 says this. And all my verses that I read today will be out of the NLT, and most likely they'll be behind me as well. So I tell you the truth. Anyone who believes in me will do the same works I have done, and even greater works, because I am going to be with the Father. You see, God does miracles, specifically miracles of healing, through faithful prayers. How many of you, raise your hand for me on this one, have prayed a prayer of healing over yourself or somebody in your lifetime? How many of you? Awesome. How many of you have done that, but then you would say God didn't heal them? Raise your hand. Okay? If God can, why didn't he? It's easy to read these stories and be like, hey, everyone get excited. God heals. My friend, I don't know if he's a friend, acquaintance, someone I look up to, Scott Smiley, he's blind. Super sad accident. You can read his book, Hope Unseen, loves Jesus, loves his wife, his family. Why didn't God heal him? Some might ask. And I would argue that he did. But that's a different story for a different day. But sometimes when we pray these prayers of healing, or pray these prayers of, I need a miracle in my life, or whatever it may be, and it doesn't happen, we begin to doubt. Here's what I mean. Why doesn't that headache go away when I pray, that migraine that keeps me home from work? Why do I always feel depressed when I have the flu and I'm hugging the toilet and I just can't stop throwing up? It's disgusting and it hurts and it makes me feel bad. And I pray, God, please heal me. The cold. If I have a cold, I think I'm dying. My wife makes fun of me. It's okay. An addiction, whatever it may be to. Maybe it's something good even, and you're trying to break it, but you just can't. You keep going back to it, even though you don't want to. Or how about a family member that you've been praying for is not getting better or died? When those things happen, a lot of times we are, as a culture, left confused, angry, bitter. We begin to be filled with doubt. It makes you feel unsettled. It makes you full of fear. Some people go as far as saying, is God even real? Does God even care? Did these things even really happen? Here's today in a nutshell. Your faith moves the heart of God. Your faith moves the heart of God. You see, our God does heal, but he doesn't heal all of the time. I'm going to say his name wrong. Please forgive me. Trophimus, the Apostle Paul's friend who accompanied him on his third missionary trip. So now we're deep into the book of Acts. Paul's on his third missionary trip, and he has this young leader who's following him around, helping serve him and help carry out his ministry. Here's some stories of when God didn't heal, right? We think that this whole book is just about, happy ever after, happy ever after, happy ever after. It is, but there's still some heartache in it. There's still some pain. And he's an example of that. He got to be left behind on Paul's third trip. Why? because he was sick and he couldn't travel anymore. And God, for whatever reason, wasn't healing him. So Paul was like, hey, man, sorry, I got to go. He talks about it in 2 Timothy 4:20. You can read it for yourself. And then in 1 Timothy 5:23, Paul talks to Timothy because Timothy obviously at some point had been communicating with Paul in a different letter about his sickness. So here's Timothy that's sick. See, Timothy was battling something that we don't know what it was, that we think it was stomach issues. There was something going on inside of his stomach, inside of his body, that was leaving Timothy always feeling ill. And in 1 Timothy 5, verse 23, Paul addresses it and gives him an idea of how to solve it. So again, here are two key people in the book of Acts, one of them in the book of Acts, one in another letter, who are planting churches, doing the work just like we are, but they're having to deal with things that we deal with. Health issues, mental issues. And then there's another one, the Apostle Paul himself. Apostle Paul, 3 different times throughout his writings, talks about the thorn in his flesh. And we don't know exactly what it is. Different scholars have said it was different things. But Paul had some sort of illness that was attacking him throughout his whole entire ministry. And it was bad. It was a struggle. And here he had an ongoing, passionate pleading with God throughout his writing. God, please heal me. Free me of this thorn in my flesh. And for whatever reason, he never was freed of it. We don't know why. You see, here's something that could happen to us as Christians, and I'm getting to that age now where I throw out these phrases, and I have to be careful, where we can begin to say, well, that's that sickness or that whatever, you must have sin, untaken care of sin in your life. There must be something going on with you behind closed doors. That's why you're dealing with this. Or you're not praying right. These are like the stereotypical sayings that you might hear, right? Or you've heard yourself from somebody. And then, or they say, you're filled with too much guilt and judgment. You haven't truly been forgiven, or you haven't truly asked for forgiveness. Now, none of those things are true. So the internal doubts that creep in and start to hurt our faith are real, right? And today, I want to focus more on 3 reasons why Jesus doesn't do that miracle in our life. That miracle of healing that we're longing for. That we think we should get. That we think we've prayed long enough for. First reason is this. Jesus refuses to perform miracles to prove himself. How many here, I'm included, have said, Jesus, prove to me right on this pin pad tonight when I fall asleep so I know you're real. We've all said some kind of prayer like that. We've all asked a prove it to me prayer. We put God in a box. We put Jesus in a box, right? Well, guess what? I hate to remind you of this. You're a creation. He's the creator. He carries the power. We're to serve. Give you the example of this. You see, just do this one thing for me, God, and I promise I'll do this for you. Or I'll promise I'll get back on track. Mark 8, verses 11 and 12. When the Pharisees heard that Jesus had arrived, they came and started to argue with him, testing him. They demanded that he show them a miraculous sign from heaven to prove his authority. When he heard this, he sighed deeply. Not again. He sighed deeply in his spirit and said, why do these people keep demanding miraculous signs? I tell you the truth, I will not give this generation any such sign. He doesn't owe it to us to prove anything. Second thing, Jesus never performed a miracle that interfered with God's ultimate plan. Key phrase in there. Not your plan or the plan that you may think you have for your life or I think I have for my life. No. God's ultimate plan. Here's an example of that. Let's fast forward to the book of Matthew, chapter 26, verses 53. What's going on during this time? This is right when Jesus is about to get arrested. He sees a group of soldiers being led by who? One of his closest followers, Judas. What does Judas do? Kisses him on his cheek. Why does he do that? It was a slap in the face. That signaled to the soldiers who Jesus was, and that's who needed to be arrested. So what does Peter do? The hero, right? I'm Peter. I know all. I'm Peter. I'm the closest follower. This guy pulls out a sword and tries to go to war with some Roman soldiers. Not the wisest thing to do in that moment. Some say Peter was going for the kill and missed and got his ear. What does Jesus do after the ear falls off? I think we missed this. Jesus finds the ear. It wasn't like he was like, oh, there's a clean, nice, non-hairy ear in his hand. No, Jesus is holding a bloody, dirty ear in his hand. And what's he do? He heals the man that's about to arrest him. And what is Jesus' response to all this? Matthew 26:53. It's a teaching moment. Don't you realize that I could ask my Father for thousands of angels to protect us? This is a teaching moment for his disciples and for everybody in that moment and for us today. Don't you realize he could have? And he would send them instantly. Just like that. Boom, army of angels. Story over. Rome, gone. Jesus wins. Third one. Why doesn't Jesus perform miracles? Jesus didn't do miracles where there was no faith. Jesus didn't do miracles where there was no faith. Let's go back to Jesus' hometown. The hometown kid returns. The teacher's pet, right? The carpenter's kid. That's Joseph's kid. He's just a kid. He's just a carpenter. And what happens in Matthew 13, verses 58? Here's what it says. And so he did only a few miracles there because, why? Their unbelief. So Jesus returns to where he's from, and now people see him as a peer, as that little kid that used to run around and work with his dad, play with his brothers, hang out with his mom, and they don't take this guy seriously. So because of that, there weren't that many miracles at all that took place on that stop. Because of why? What does it say in 58 again? The word unbelief. Which brings me back to our main point today. You see, your faith moves the heart of God. Your faith moves the heart of God. Let me give you some examples of what I mean by that. The woman who didn't stop bleeding for 12 years. Have you heard that story before? She was a woman of faith. She had tried everything that she could. Everything you could think of possibly, scientifically, voodoo, whatever you want to call it. She tried everything. Nothing could stop her bleeding until in Mark 5:34, she knew this man Jesus was coming through her town. So she made sure she was in an area that she could be to touch him, which was very dangerous because she was not supposed to be in public because she was seen as unclean, dirty, dangerous. What'd she do? Head down, almost like a spy. I love that reference. Just touches Jesus. Mark 5:34. Here's what it says. This is Jesus' response, without even knowing what's going on. Daughter. I love that. Daughter. Not stranger. Not, hey, you. No, daughter. It's a beautiful, beautiful visual of how God sees us, his sons and daughters. Your faith has made you well. What has made her well? Her faith. The opposite of unbelief. Go in peace. Your suffering is over. How about this one in Luke 17:19? Leprosy, fall at his feet. This man full of leprosy. If you've seen pictures before, if you haven't, Google image it. Falls at Jesus' feet as he's passing through. Cries out to him, heal me, help me. Please. I'm ignored daily. Jesus says to the man, stand up. Go. Your faith has healed you. His what? His faith. The opposite of unbelief. How about this one in Mark 10:52? Blind man, can't see Jesus, but here's the crowd, knows this guy's coming through. Something special's about to happen. What's he do? He screams out to him, have mercy on me. Jesus says to him, go, for your faith has healed you. Instantly the man could see, and he followed Jesus down the road. What healed that man? His faith. You see, our faith moves the heart of God. A lot of the times we think the more I do for him, the more that I read the Bible, the more that I pray, the more that I memorize, the more works that I do, maybe then it'll start happening for me. Maybe then I'll be blessed. Maybe then I'll be healed. And you should strive for all those things, but they shouldn't be, the aim is to get something back. Because let me tell you what amazed Jesus while he was here on earth. There were only two things. Only two things amazed him when we did them. And here's what they are. And Scripture shows us this. He was amazed by the wow moments. And the wow moments were people who had that incredible belief. So imagine those three people before me. Jesus is like, wow, I can't believe they had this much faith. And then there were oh, wow, really? You still don't believe? You remember the story I shared last week? The disciples come down the mountain, and for whatever reason, they are unable to perform miracles because they still doubt. They still have unbelief in their hearts. And Jesus is like, get it through your heads. You're literally walking with me. That's oh, wow, you still don't believe? Those are the only two ways that we can amaze our Creator. Not by works, by our faith. See, when Jesus saw faith, he was always amazed. He was wowed. Here's some examples of what I mean by that. The Roman soldier who came to Jesus about his sick servant who was hundreds of miles home. And what's this Roman soldier say to Jesus? Hey, you don't need to come with me. I know you have the power to heal from right here. Just say the words. This is a Roman soldier. And Jesus, that's wow, this guy gets it. That's that kind of moment. Jesus was amazed. He had not seen such great faith. And then going back to his hometown visit, when he visited his hometown, that was oh, okay, wow. You still don't get it? Wow, that's unbelief. No one impressed by him. You're just Joseph's son. No faith. You see, when it comes to your faith, here's my question for you today. Do you fall in the category of, wow, is your faith wow? Or is it just, wow, God, I mean, that's cool to read and everything. Cool, Troy, sounds great, but guess what? My back still hurts. I'm still sick. I'm still depressed. Whatever. Or are you thinking to yourself, man, you know what? I'm sore. I'm hurting. But wow, we serve the Creator of the universe. Where are you at right now? It may come and go in seasons. You see, again, your faith moves the heart of God. And here's how you know where you fall in the wow. Here's how you can ask yourself. It's easy. If I were to sit down with you this week over coffee, and I were to ask you, tell me about your prayers last week. What did you pray about last week? I could tell you where you fall. And that's not me saying I know it all. That's not me judging you. It's just facts. Because here's the reality of your prayers. They tell me where your faith's at. So what kind of prayers are you asking for? Are they God-sized, impossible prayers that we just sang about? Or are they, man, Jesus, thank you for this food. Bless this home. Keep us healthy. Amen. Is that it? Nothing's wrong with that. You should be doing that. But is that it? Really? That's all you're going to pray about? Don't have big faith? Start somewhere. I talked about it last week. The faith of a mustard seed. Tiniest little seed you can imagine. Producing the biggest, most beautiful tree you could ever imagine. It starts somewhere, right? We talked about it, the 31-day challenge, just 15 minutes a day. Mustard seed. Start somewhere. God-sized prayers. There's a dad in the Bible who had God-sized prayers. And it takes place in Mark chapter 9 in verse 24. And what's going on right now is he has a son. If any parent here has ever had their kid go through something physically, it's devastating as a parent, right? You feel helpless. It leaves you a little broken. And that's where this dad was. You see, his son couldn't speak. He had demons, and he was so bad that he was being thrown into fires. His dad was desperate. And it was the most vulnerable, coolest prayer I think there is in the Bible. A prayer that I have committed to praying this week because I feel like I'm there. The father instantly cries out to Jesus, and this is what the father says. Father, Jesus, I do believe, but help me overcome my unbelief. If we're all honest, we have a heart of unbelief at times. That's okay. It's going to happen. But are we asking for it to be reversed, like this father in a desperate moment? I do believe, but help me overcome my unbelief. That's being real. You see, right now, if I'm perfectly honest with you guys, I find myself in a time of doubt for what is to come. I am scared. There's a lot happening in my own personal family. There's a lot that's happened in my family this week and the week before and the week before that. There's a lot happening in our Blue Bridge family. I can look at some of you and I know some of your stories that you're going through some stuff. Some bad stuff, and it's hard. It leaves us unsettled and rattled, if we're being honest, right? It leaves us being a little doubtful, being a little fearful. But I'm going to pray this week, and I pray that you do the same. Pray with me that, Father, help me to overcome my unbelief. Father, help me to overcome my unbelief. Over and over again. You see, our faith is not based on what God does. Our faith is not based on what God does. Our faith is based on who God is. That is everything right there. It's not about what he does. It's about who he is. See, faith does not rest on what God does or doesn't do. We have to believe this, that God can and that God will. Even if he doesn't, God can, God will. Psalm 147 verse 3 says this. He heals the brokenhearted and bandages their wounds. He heals the brokenhearted. What comes first? And bandages their wounds. Mark chapter 2, I challenge you, go read it this week, verses 1 through 12 or 1 through 13. It's a story about a paralyzed man who's got 4 friends, and they're desperate for their friend to get help, and they know that Jesus is showing up, and they've heard about this guy, and the house is full, and there's no way in, and these friends go all out for their friend. Perfect example of the church, right? They dig a hole, they lower him to get to Jesus, interrupt the service. That'd be pretty dang cool. And scary. And what happens? Cool story, but here's what I want you to focus on in that story. What happened first in Mark 2? When they lowered his friend in front of Jesus, when you read that this week, look at what happens first. Spoiler alert, he doesn't heal the man. Guess what he does? Forgives him of his sins. Why is that important? You see, God is far more concerned about the health of your soul than he is about the health of your body. He's far more concerned about the health of your soul than the health of your body. Your body will be restored. Your soul can't. Heaven, hell. Heaven, hell. No in between. So I read Psalm 147, verse 3 again to you. He heals the brokenhearted and bandages their wounds. Bandages their wounds. Doesn't always heal them. Bandages. But he heals the brokenhearted. A lot of times we have it backwards. God, you need to heal me and I'll serve you. No. I can go back and tell you the stories of people who we consider patriarchs of the church, and they had it. Paul, Timothy, and so on. So will we. So I close with this question today. How is your faith? Does your faith move the heart of God in your own life? Does it? Is it based on what he has done or has not done? Is it conditional? Or is it based on who he is? Who he is. So where do you need Psalm 147:3 in your life? Think about that with me. Where do you need healing in your life? Physical, relational, regret, doubt, insecurities, addiction. My challenge for you this week, other than reading Mark chapter 2, is simply this. Go on our app. Participate on our prayer wall. If you don't have the app yet, I will help you download it. We have a prayer wall that you can access all week long. You can post prayers. You can comment on prayers. I challenged you last week to go on and share your Project 15 people, which I'll talk about shortly. I think about 4 or 5 of you did, so thank you for doing that. I challenge you to get everyone on there to do it because that's how we're going to grow, people. But go on there and you'll see that there's a prayer wall challenge for today, October 14th. I can't remember what I titled it. I think I titled it God Can and God Will. If you click on it, there's going to be 3 questions that will say the challenge you to participate in. 3 are this. Write down the miracle you're asking God for. Share it with us. You don't have to put your name. We just want to pray with you. The second one is, what is the state of your faith? How is it healthy? How can it grow? So share where you're at so that we can pray for that as well. We check it daily. What physical, spiritual, or emotional miracle are you trusting God with? What spiritual, physical, or emotional miracle are you trusting God with? Those 3 questions are on the app. If you're a part of a group, you'll be asked those questions as well this week. But let me please remind you as we close today is don't quit. I said quit. Don't quit before the miracle. Don't give up. Don't quit. And if you did, start back up. It's as simple as that. So Project 15, if you weren't here last week, this all goes together with this series. And the reason why is because Project 15 is going to take a miracle. It's a miracle for our church. Because the reality is we have about 15 months left of assets as a church to be able to function the way we are right now. If we continue doing exactly what we're doing, the way we're doing it, with this crew, which is awesome, we have no more than 15 months left as a church. That's not very long. We all know how fast a year goes by. It could be less, it could be a little more, but 15 is kind of like the number. So we're launching this campaign because we believe in the mission of Blue Bridge. We believe there are people in the Tri-Cities, more people that need Jesus that don't. It's proven. That need to discover and develop a relationship with Jesus. So Project 15 is simply this. It comes out of Psalm 150, which is a psalm that gives thanks. It comes out of Acts chapter 2, verses 42 through 47. It talks about what the church is, and that's the church that we want to be at Blue Bridge. And then my challenge with all that is that you, as families, as a couple, as an individual, wherever you stand in your season of life, would write down 15 names. So if there's a family of 6, 2 parents and 4 kids, guess what? You're almost halfway there. And that you'll begin to pray for those families and be intentional on trying to get them here. And hopefully those families are people who don't have a home church already. If they have a home church, let them be. We want people who don't know Jesus. We want them to experience it, which leads us into our other next 2 goals of we want to see 15 people say yes to Jesus in the next 15 months. We want to see 15 people be baptized in water because we believe that's a part of your growth track that Jesus has laid out for us. And 15 is not that big of a number, But the reason why we chose that number is we believe 15 creates momentum. So that 15 can turn to 20. That 20 can turn to 25. It's a domino effect, right? 15 minutes a day turns into 20 minutes a day. Try it. You'll see. We want to see 15 new givers begin to give $250 or more a month, which would be an increase of $45,000 minimum to our operational budget. You might be thinking, man, how much do you guys spend? Well, come have coffee with me. I'll talk to you about our budget. I'll talk to you about how operations works. I'll talk to you about how a nonprofit operates. We have nothing to hide. We have dreams. We have a plan, and we believe it's biblical. And then part of Project 15 is we want to have our own space in 15 months, a place that we can call home, a place that we believe will give us more intentional resources to be able to create a better space to encounter Jesus throughout the whole entire week, a place that we can create for the community to use, not just for us as a church, that we believe will give us more credibility than we currently have now. I talked about last week, it's the opposite of an environment of being casual. We want to up the ante. And then my goal for me personally is I want to go out as your leader and raise $150,000. That will go towards all that on the side. $150,000, it seems like a lot, but it's not a lot. And so I'm committed, and I believe that we can do it because I believe in this mission. I wouldn't sit down with someone and ask them to partner with us as an organization if I didn't believe in it. So I end with this. You're 15 people. Who all are they going to be? How are you praying for them now? Did you write them down from last week? If this is your first time hearing about it, do it tonight. Do it today. Do it with your spouse. Begin to pray about it. Begin to invite them over to your home. Begin to invite them out for coffee. Begin to build relationship with them. They can be co-workers. They could be neighbors. They can be family members. So that's everything in a nutshell for today. The miracle of healing. Where is your unbelief? Or where is your belief? Is it an unbelief? Is it the wow, oh, wow? Or is it the wow, I can't believe they have that kind of belief. They get it. That's what we want to get. So right now what's going to happen is we're going to close. We're going to sing one last song. And I challenge you during this time as we stand and worship, begin to think about those 3 questions that I posted on our app. The 3 questions that simply say, I'm trying to find them, there they are, right, then what miracle are you asking God for currently? Focus on that. What's the state of your faith? Where are you at? Is it a state of unbelief or belief? And then specifically, the physical, spiritual, or emotional miracle, are you trusting God with it? Begin to dive into that, dwell on it, and wrestle with God about it. We're going to pray, we're going to sing, and then we're going to come back up. So, Father, thank you so much for this time that we had together. I just pray, Father, that we can be people of belief, not of unbelief. A belief of healing in our own lives, for others, for illnesses, for diseases, for injuries, and also for the mental side of things as well, that you will mentally free us of an addiction to something that maybe we just can't let go of. And I also pray that, God, that you will just protect us this week, God, as a church, that we too can be a church of belief, a church of faith of a mustard seed, and that Project 15 can become a reality, not because of me, but because of us and because of your power, God. We love you so much. In your name I pray. Amen. Go ahead and stand with me, and let's sing this last song together.